Okay, welcome everyone. So nice to see all of you. And we were just doing a quick check-in. How's everybody doing? Anybody have any news, good, bad, or otherwise to report? Yes, Barbara.
I am on a vacation in my home. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I am relaxed. I am relieved that everybody is back to their respective homes and they are settled and they are safe and they have some full-time childcare help of a teacher who doesn't have a job now, and that's working out well for them. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. For those of you who might not know, I've had all the kids, well, my son's family with a 1.5 and a 4-year-old with us for over 2 months. And I'm glad they were here. I'm glad I could share the time with them. And I'm glad they were ready to leave now, because I think we were all getting to the point of like, you know, it's kind of like, I think for the kids too, they were at the point of feeling like they just even needed to do some, that's Steve wheeling out the door as he leaves. They were just getting at the point of feeling like they needed to have some social interaction at a distance outside, for my grandson, even at 4 years old. So I'm glad that it's working out. And now I'm trying to get to spend a little more time with Leah and her new baby, who's now 3 months old, but it's kind of hard. You know, I'll see her sometime. Last week I was with her with a mask, and it was hard for me to, I heard parts of the group, but I never turned it on because it was very fleeting in and out seconds. So that's what's happening here. And I've never thought I'd be at this point and be glad we didn't do our downsize that I wanted so badly to do by now.
Wow. So
I know that's our new.
It's hard, you know, when you love our little itty bitty condo, but the negative aspect is it's very hard to host a large group of the whole family together. And, you know, once Sarah and Tim are gone, when they come back to visit, you know, we won't be able to have them in the house with us. So that's the negative of a small space.
Yeah, I don't usually have the opportunity to have them here that much, because usually we would be in California with them, and if they came to us, it was never for that long of a period of time, and they'd be here and they'd be in and out with, you know, visiting their friends, and we'd be going to other places. So this was very unusual.
When is Sarah leaving, Rabbi?
Sarah's leaving August 17th.
Okay.
Wow. That's going to be a big adjustment.
Oh, please. I can't even talk about it. Debbie, how are you today? Nice to see you.
Doing all right.
Yeah. How's the roof coming?
Pardon?
How's the roof coming?
Roof is done.
You're kidding.
Roof is done.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah, roof is done. We threw away some clothes. And actually this morning I hiked wearing my roof foam laden shoes because I left my regular sneakers, hiking shoes up in Flagstaff. And we'll be going back up there tonight. So anyway, doing okay. Down here for a few days and we'll go back up.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And Mom and Erwin, Mom, happy day after your birthday. Sandy, look up.
Happy birthday,
Sandy.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So we want to hear how you spent your birthday. Marilyn was saying before you got on that she had her 8mm films converted to DVDs at Costco.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a tip for you.
Thank you. Actually, I'm expecting the realtor to come any minute with a signed contract that I have to sign. So I'm probably going to be leaving you very abruptly.
So my mom listed her house in Jersey and it sold in like 2 days. furnished, so she doesn't
Bravo.
deal with getting rid of the furniture.
Wow, that's great.
Congratulations.
Where are you moving
Well,
to?
I'm getting the sign contract now, and then they have 72 hours to back out. And then we have to have the inspection. So it's not over till they sign and we have their house inspected. But I
Where
have
are
to
you
get
moving?
very busy and deep. What?
Frank
Where are
wants
you
to know
moving
where
to?
you're moving. So she mostly lives in New York, in the city,
Okay.
but has had this place in Jersey for how long, Mom?
My realtor is out front.
Okay, bye. So I think she's had the place in Jersey for like 25, 30 years, and it was kind of a weekend sort of a place. Now when she goes to Jersey, she stays with Erwin, so she doesn't need her own place anymore.
Cute.
Good. So Barbara's big news is that she has her house back to herself. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say, Barbara, as soon as you got on, you just looked so good, so relaxed. And I wanted to make note of that.
Oh, thank you. I had a chance to put a little lipstick on, to kind of do this to my hair. Hasn't been cut, so you'll always see it wild, except for my cutting the bangs. But thank you. I'm not hiding in a back bedroom or a space that I wouldn't want
The
you to
mass
see me in.
murder.
I can, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Carol, how are you feeling? Yeah, you've been a little under the weather with
I had an epidural. You'll have to excuse me a little bit. I'm a little groggy today. I had an epidural this morning, which is not doing too good. I'm still in a lot of pain.
Mhm.
They said it takes anywhere from 2 to 14 days till it starts working.
Uh-huh.
But I'm still kind of groggy from the medication this morning.
Yeah, she was,
I'm lying on the couch, as you can see.
so we moved her over here, so that's why she's kind of down there. If we need to talk to her, we'll move the screen a little bit, but
Okay.
you know, she had anesthetic this morning. They kind of put her out, so
Sure.
she's a little bit woozy right now, but this is not a new procedure for us. It takes a few days for it to take effect,
And then
so.
I'm getting
You
another
just
one.
relax, and we hope it works as quickly as possible.
Right, thank you. I'm getting another one in 2 weeks. 2 weeks
Oh,
from today.
okay, good.
And then he'll decide what he wants to do.
Uh-huh.
Said he wanted to do some kind of a procedure. I have what's called lumbar spinal stenosis, and I have 6 herniated discs.
Wow.
So what he wants to do, because I won't do this, I won't go through the operation. It's a very long procedure, and I don't feel that I want to be under the knife that long.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to do a procedure whereby he makes an incision in my back approximately the size of a baby aspirin. Excuse me. And he will relieve the nerve,
The pressure.
the pressure from the nerve that is leading on my spine. And that should help quite a bit. It's not going to help 100%, but it's going to be a hell of a lot better than what I'm going through now.
Yeah.
So-
Do you have that scheduled? Do you have a date for that?
No, he won't schedule that until after I have the second epidural, which is 2 weeks from today.
All right.
So we'll see how that goes. You know, sorry about that. It's a relatively new process called the mild MILD procedure. That's about 2 or 3 years old now. So it's more of a laparoscopic
2017, yeah.
type procedure that it was described in the literature as taking the kink out of a drinking straw where it might have been squeezed. And what they do is they go in there because what's squeezing it is part of the disc. So they'll go in through this little incision and try and shave the disc down to relieve the pressure on her spinal cord for that pain. So that's what she's going to do. Right now, we're just trying to make sure she's comfortable and happy, and you know, we'll feed her and
Happy.
know.
Tra la la la.
But Rabbi, you said you were going on vacation, so what are we going to do while you're gone?
Oh, I mean, going on vacation just means that I have, days. I mean, this is technically a day off for me. I'm not doing anything exotic, but I won't be at services Friday night because I'm off this week. But I'm still keeping up with Wise Aging and Torah study because those are ongoing commitments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's my pleasure.
So since you're not going anywhere, I guess we can count on Ron being around too. If
We can count on Ron being around. We did rent a house in Flagstaff for a week in July.
Okay.
We hope to get away with the kids in July. But perfect segue to chapter 4, which maybe you had a chance to look at, maybe not. Discovering your inner pilgrim. So this chapter is really focusing on how we grow through travel, which is, an interesting topic to be discussing right now, because I don't think there's anybody who's really planning any significant travel. We were supposed to be gone, I think right now. We had this wonderful trip planned. We were going to take a river cruise from Basel to Amsterdam. And it was through Backroads, which is the bike tour company that we adore. So the idea was we would be on the river and every day get off and do these wonderful bike trips. So it combined the best of both worlds. We did reschedule it for a year from now. And oh my goodness, I can't even imagine if a year from now we're still not able to travel. That would be just terrible. But the author of this chapter is written by Rabbi Vanessa Oakes, and she talks about traveling. She talks about a pilgrimage. So first of all, when you hear that word pilgrimage, how does that resonate for you as something different from ordinary recreational travel?
I think for me, it's basically, I guess, getting in touch with my inner religious feelings in the space of a different area than what I am in today, and so more of a spirit aspect of a travel.
So travel that helps you get in touch with your spiritual essence.
Right.
Hi, Jane. Welcome. We're talking about travel. We're talking about chapter 4 in the book, and specifically the idea of a pilgrimage. So Frank just said that he understands that as travel that connects more to a sense of spirituality. Myra.
I have to tell you that with the last few months, my daughter drove from a suburb of Chicago to New Hampshire to a new house, a new home. And she loves it in New Hampshire. I'm so glad for her. And don't ask me why okay, that's one thing. Then I have a lawyer that drove from Ohio back here to back and forth. He drove. So people are driving. I think it's safer.
Oh, absolutely. I know many people who are getting where they need to go. Sharon and Daniel Feller drove to Bellingham.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people are not going further than they can drive right now, trying to avoid air travel, if at all possible. Yeah, Sandy?
When you say pilgrimage, two experiences that I've had that made me feel that it was a break with just not just going on a regular vacation, but like moving out to Arizona and driving out here with everything and having a whole new way of life. That was a pilgrimage, I thought, in a sense.
Yeah.
And so when the three of us, David, me, and Michael, took a 3-week trip to Israel, instead of having a big party, we went there and we explored the whole country and did get in touch, like Frank was saying, with I've never been to the wall, and and I wanted to see that, and get in touch with ancient Israel as well as modern Israel, and just sort of connect. And so I thought that was a pilgrimage in a sense.
Yes, when I was reading this and thinking about it, certainly trips to Israel, you know, have that immediate sense of pilgrimage connection with that. Marilyn?
I think pilgrimage to me connotes something that's significant and a bit religious.
So you're saying religious, Frank, and Sandy used the word spiritual. Let me read a couple of paragraphs of what the author has to say. Debbie, what were you going to say?
Well, I have a couple different thoughts running through my head. And one is, like, I look at, like when we go to Canada, which hopefully we might still do, that's a pilgrimage in itself. And it feels like there's a spiritual side to that for a, almost like a sabbatical, right? And, you know, here I've been driving back and forth a few times to Flagstaff, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so there's learning along the way with that. So yes, I might not be traveling to go to all the sites in Flagstaff and that type of thing and having a learning experience that way, but there's a different learning that's inside. And then in reading the chapter, I'll come back later I'll raise my hand again and talk about a thought I was having about a pilgrimage moving forward. So.
Okay. But you're reminding us of the important point that sometimes the journey is as meaningful as the destination.
Correct.
The only thing I wanted to add to that, you know, before was that for me, sometimes a pilgrimage might be a visit to some place that members of my family have been or grown up in the past, to relive some of the history of my own family, places that my parents or their parents spent time with.
Yes, and the author makes that exact point. So I just wanted to read, I'm at the bottom of page 44. Then there's a whole other category of pilgrim-like journeys that people make to places of special meaning. So just think about that. Places of special meaning. Paying homage at the home of a hero. Elvis's Graceland and Thoreau's Walden Pond are favorites. So think about how is there, you know, one of the things that was on our itinerary for this trip that we've had to postpone was I'm a huge Van Gogh fan. And I would guess that going to the Van Gogh Museum for me would have felt very much like a pilgrimage. Going back to grandma's house, Joe, that's what you're talking about, but in a broader, deeper way. Visiting the Lower East Side where your family might have lived generations ago, or traveling abroad to discover the place in the old country from which ancestors hailed. I know that that's high on Ron's priority list. He wants to get back to Poland and visit some of the places where his family came from. I love to make pilgrimages to the 2nd Avenue Deli. I'm sorry my mom is missing this, because even in this COVID era, I think probably a month or so ago, she made a pilgrimage to the 2nd Avenue Deli. You already know how, like every day in New York, she's walking all over the place, and that was a big thing for her. She walked to the 2nd Avenue Deli. It's no longer on 2nd Avenue, by the way. It's moved. But
where did it move to?
Oh, she'll tell us when she comes on.
33rd Street.
Yeah, 33rd.
What avenue?
I think it's not. I think it's 3rd Avenue, maybe. We walked there from where your mom lives.
The
2nd Avenue Deli to visit with my cousin. Met us there.
Yeah, she'll tell us if she gets done with her real estate papers. So I love to make pilgrimages to the 2nd Avenue Deli in Midtown Manhattan, where every few years I abandon my near vegetarian diet and perform the beloved ritual of my New York childhood, having a pastrami sandwich on squishy rye bread along with half sour pickles and a shot of chocolate soda. Take note, I have witnessed extremely pious fellow pilgrims who start the ritual with the bowl of matzo ball soup or a hot dog with everything on it. Pilgrimage. So here's the essential takeaway, I think, the essential definition. Pilgrimage transforms something potentially mundane, traveling away from home to a destination, into an act that bonds people to matters that are ultimately important to them. It takes something as potentially random as a particular place on the earth, even a specific rock, and transforms it into what some have called a thin place, a place where heaven and earth meet. So I want to read that one sentence again. Pilgrimage transforms something potentially mundane. So think about that for a minute. Where have you traveled that could potentially be mundane, traveling away from home to a destination, into an act that bonds people to matters that are ultimately important to them? So each of us is going to answer that question differently. What is ultimately important to us personally? So given that definition, what other travels have you done that you would characterize as a pilgrimage, looking back?
Yeah, I think I can chime in on that one. When the last sentence kind of resonated with me, when we were deciding what to do for our 50th anniversary, Carol decided she wanted to go back to Boston, which is where our kids grew up. And we took them and their significant others along with us. And they were able to show their spouses where they grew up. And we stopped Frank at Crescent Ridge Farm for some ice cream in Canton, and on Sharon rather, and did a few other things, the No Name Restaurant, places that they frequented when they were growing up that they loved. And it was kind of really very satisfying to me to see how enthusiastic our children were about showing their spouses where they grew up and the house they grew up in and so on. And it was, you know, kind of an interesting pilgrimage, if you will.
Absolutely.
Mine was similar to Joe's. I was back east, went to Maine for a wedding and traveled back east and went to New Bedford, Massachusetts, where my father had lived for several years on 585 Rockdale Avenue. And I went to the house and actually knocked on the door, and the lady that was living there and invited us. I might have invited myself, but to go into the house and just look around. And so that was very satisfying to me because I'd heard so much about it. We also were driving through New Bedford and saw a building that looked like it was a manufacturing building, and my grandfather had a coat manufacturing building, and I don't know if it was Bashert or not, but it said Kaplan on the building.
Oh, wow.
Whether it was his or somebody else, I don't know, but so that was quite meaningful.
That sounds like more than a coincidence.
Yeah.
I think, you know, in a way, when you connect with food that you had as a child and it doesn't taste the same out here, go back to New York and, you know, for example, David had never had a New York bagel in New York. And it was just like an experience, an epiphany that he had. And that's his thumb. And, you know, we also did the trip to Boston and went to the No Name Restaurant because Joe said it was so wonderful to them. And it felt like a pilgrimage in a sense, finding it and getting there and eating there. So, I mean, you know, food is.
Yeah, I think so. I think we do make pilgrimages to enjoy specific foods. Rabbi Oakes mentions the pastrami sandwich at the 2nd Avenue Deli. I love those New York street pretzels. Every time I go to New York, I have to have one of those pretzels.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, pilgrimage that I could think of is when we went back to Jersey, which is where I grew up. It was the other side of Jersey, though. But when we moved my mom to Arizona, going there, meeting my brother and sister-in-law, started to pack up her stuff and actually get her here to Arizona.
So, Erwin, Erwin, can you hear me?
Yes, dear. Yes, I can.
Yes. So, in all of your 98 years, what is a very memorable place that you traveled?
Milford Sound in New Zealand. Milford Sound, New Zealand.
And
It's the most beautiful place I've been in the world, and I've been around.
so it was the physical beauty of the place?
The physical beauty, yes. We were on a ship, just standing in the middle of that sand, and you looked around. It was extraordinary, and the most beautiful place I've ever been.
Wow. Mom, I don't know if you've looked in this chapter in the book, but the author mentions making a pilgrimage to the 2nd Avenue Deli, which I know is no longer on 2nd Avenue, but we were wondering like where exactly it is right now.
Moved.
What,
2nd Avenue Deli, where is it?
2nd Avenue Deli is on 74th Street and 1st Avenue, and the 38th Street around 3rd Avenue. There are 2 of them in New York.
Uh-huh. And
Excellent.
I do recall that you recently made a pilgrimage to the 2nd Avenue Deli.
I tried to, but they were closed because of COVID.
Oh, no.
I'm hoping that they will be open by the time I get back, because they're not exactly inexpensive, but they are. You've been there with me, I think.
I know I've been there.
Do you think they'll deliver to Arizona? Do you think they'll deliver to Arizona?
For you, Frank, of course.
I bet they might do a mail order business.
There is a Knish place, at least there used to be, in
Nona Schimmel's. Nona Schimmel's on Nona Schimmel's on Houston.
Yeah,
Still
and
there.
my brother sent a bunch of that out to my parents when they were here, and they just loved it, you know.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're going to tell me about it. I haven't had a good Knish in, I can't remember how many years.
Neither.
I have to tell you, there's another place though that does deliver all over, and I didn't discover it. It was a very high-end appetizing store called Russ and Daughters.
Oh, yeah.
They wrote a book. There was a movie with them, and I did not know it until I went to a bar mitzvah in California, and they imported they had the appetizing chip from Russ and Daughters. And after that, now they're in the Jewish Museum, and they're really very good.
It's the first time I had halava ice
And I signed my contract.
at the Russell Brothers in the Jewish Museum.
Yes. So,
So my pilgrimage was to the place that my mother, who grew up in Montreal, met my father, who grew up in Brooklyn. He was in the Army, and he had R&R. He went up to Old Orchard, Maine, where he met my mother, who was there vacationing from Montreal. So we were in New Hampshire seeing friends, and then we drove into Maine. And I said to Joel, I really want to see Old Orchard Beach. So we were driving, and we got there, and I was looking for, well, of course, they had the boardwalk and the beach. She met him on the boardwalk. And I was looking for places that maybe were around when they were there. So they had like a Knish place, and they had all kinds of food places. But one of them had a sign, I think it said from 1938. So that would have been, earlier than where my parents met there. So I was very happy to go there. I felt more connected to my parents walking around down there. And what interested me is as you drove into the city, there were train tracks and all little motels around the train tracks. And that train is how she got there from Montreal.
It's almost something nostalgic with all of this, right?
Yeah. We've done nostalgia tours of where we grew up too in New York. We went to my school, elementary school, Joel's elementary school, which is where I met him, playing squash against the wall in the yard behind his school. And
I haven't heard that in a
we
while.
went to my old apartment, his house, which is owned by an Orthodox family now. And we got out of the car to take pictures of it. And they were all kids, all ages. And one boy was bouncing a basketball. And so then the father came out, very religious, pious, and he said, "Why are you taking pictures here?" And Joel said, "I used to live here. My grandmother lived upstairs and my family lived down here. And we were hoping maybe he'd invite us in, but he didn't. So he wanted us to leave and not take pictures."
Oh, really? Barbara.
Yeah. I had a lot of the same thoughts that many of you have shared. A couple things that I'll share with you. One is that one would be about just about every place that we have traveled, probably since the time of the kids' bar mitzvahs. At that time, in between the two bar and bat mitzvahs, starting with our being part of the first Temple High trip to Israel, with Rabbi Burke and Sharona, that was definitely, for sure, felt like a pilgrimage. I don't think any of you were on that trip. Am I mistaken? I don't think so. But just about every place else we've been since then seems to have a Jewish heritage possibility of a tour, including, of course, the wonderful trip that a third of those on the screen I'm looking at right now, I only can see 9 of you at a time. We shared that together, of course, with Bonnie, Rabbi Capel and Frank and Diane and Debbie. And I think your mom was on that too, wasn't she?
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were there too. And Debbie's mom, I'll never forget the back of that ride to we were kind of, we all let our hair down, but it was a wonderful, meaningful trip, besides the fact that we kind of got a little crazy too.
Barbara, where was that trip?
Cuba.
Oh, yeah. Emmy and Alan Newdelman, I know.
Yes. And we became good friends with the Newdelmans, and also Sue Core, who I had known from years ago as Sue Hershkowitz, back when our kids were in Tikti together, but I didn't really ever know her well. So it was an amazing experience. But every place else that we've been, every country we've been to, we've always taken part in a Jewish heritage part of it. And I have felt that connection, in every place, because all over, at least the places we've toured, that possibility has been there. And then the other thing I was going to mention was the part with connecting with my past. And that also, every time we would take the kids into Philadelphia, we would always be pointing out, we would be driving by on the way to my mom's. Oh, that's where the apartment where mom and dad both lived when we met each other. They've heard the story a million times, how we had to travel to Stratton, Vermont to meet each other skiing, and then find out that we lived like in the same building. So they'd always go, "Yeah, Mom, yeah, Dad, we know. I mean, they could find the place in their sleep. They've heard it so much.
That's a great story, though.
Yeah, it is. But the other thing that more recently I've thought about with this inner pilgrim, and I'm doing more connecting with, is pulling together the parts of my past that I can't always physically go to, and making it available for my kids and for my cousins' kids, so they can all stay connected and know each other. I mean, I've found things. Somebody connected me, a cousin who lives in Mexico now, who was her mother and my father were first cousins, and I knew of her mother, and she left LA when the earthquakes were there many years ago. They all ran. When it didn't make me happy to hear she lived in Sherman Oaks, where Adam lives now, and she tells me that the fireplaces fell down into the floor during that earthquake. But the stories of people, it was like, oh yes, we had cousins who took off to California and we never got to see them after growing up. And so there's so many stories that are out there. So I'm trying to help bring that together. And right now I actually have been in the middle of, I have one of my last livings relatives in my father's family, the Lukow family, just passed away. And so we have a Zoom funeral on Friday that will be taking place graveside in Philadelphia. And in the course of doing that, I've been helping get everybody, all the emails up to date so I could send the current Zoom information out, and getting our text chains up to date. And everybody is getting, because emails and phone numbers get outdated over the years, and we've lost touch with everybody. So a lot of the younger cousins have been sharing a lot on Facebook, but I'm not as comfortable doing that with my kids with the names. I might put a baby picture out there when they're little, but I don't put the whole name. So anyway, I feel like by bringing some of those connections together, that we're all going to be able to share the bits and pieces that we've all come across. And one of the things was like the grocery store in Philadelphia, where my father's family and where they lived, the grocery store was downstairs and they lived upstairs in 3 bedrooms, and, their history when they came over from Russia. So it's been very interesting.
That's a wonderful project. Debbie?
Well, so from what I was talking about before, I want to tag on to what you were saying, Barbara, because as I read the chapter, I had this feeling that this project that I'm embarking on with all of Marilyn Smith's memorabilia and the history, and trying to create for all of the founders of the LPGA an opportunity to keep them relevant in their values. There's the stories, the empowerment, what they've accomplished, to be able to share that with not just family, but obviously with the world, if you will, and the best way to do that. And as I was reading the chapter and came across the word pilgrimage, it really made me feel like, well, what we're trying to do is create a pilgrimage for people to walk through this history and taste it and understand it and live and breathe and keep it alive, if you will, and have something that they could come back to and bring others to and tell the stories and whatnot. So the word pilgrimage was very meaningful for me when I read the chapter with this project.
And Debbie, as you're talking, I'm going back to bonding people to matters that are ultimately important to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie, what kind of a platform are you thinking of having? Is it going to be online or a physical place, or?
Well, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of people who want to be involved. At the Founders Cup tournament that was going to be this past March, we were actually doing a founders museum on the course, as well as inside the hotel, to capture the business traveler who has no idea that there's an LPGA tournament happening at the hotel at the same time. But there are some different venues around the country that have said that they would like to display and have information. One of the founders that's still alive has asked us to look into having a trailer put together that could travel to different events and to schools and things along those lines. So, we're at some preliminary stages of organizing thoughts and ideas and brainstorming for what would be meaningful. And I've spoken with a couple of the tour players who are younger, who do things like we're doing now, and they're on screens all the time and they're not going to go somewhere. So we have to be able to do something that's meaningful and viable for the younger people who want to just look at their screens in order to have the pilgrimage, if you will. So we've been looking at a variety of different things. Thank you for asking, Sandy.
Interesting, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have a really broad variety of options there.
Yeah, well, I think I could be busy for a long time.
I think so. And, when we're talking about preserving history, I hope you got, I think I sent out after our last conversation, the 52 questions in 52 weeks. Did everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Where was that, in an email?
It should have been in the, the last email.
In the recap.
Yeah, in the recap
Oh.
email. So
Have to check
just-
back.
yeah, just another vehicle. If you can't find it, Barbara, let me know.
Okay.
But it's the idea is just another vehicle for preserving your history to pass on to the next generation.
You know, one of the things too that we've done recently, my family's relatively small, and you know, unlike years ago when we grew up in a neighborhood or relatively close by. We lived in New York, and my aunt lived in New Jersey. My other uncle lived out on Long Island. We were fairly close. Now the family is scattered all over. We've got people in California and Colorado and Maryland and Texas and, you know, just all over the place. And we had tried in the past to do a family reunion, and there were a couple done, but most of the time they've been on the East Coast. And to go out there for a Friday night to Sunday morning got very expensive, and some people couldn't afford to do it. So with this technology now, we have started a monthly family on Zoom. And this month, what we decided to do is start a program where one of us will volunteer to tell a little bit about our life story, since a lot of the younger folks don't know anything about some of the older folks, and how we got to where we are, and, you know, a little story about our life. And then also digging into the archives, if you will, and sharing some family photos on Zoom, you know, through the sharing screen, to look at family members that many of us have no idea about. I mean, my cousin showed a picture of my uncle, and I never knew that his actual name was Lajos. I always knew him as Eli, and he was from Czechoslovakia, but he was born as Lajos. Then when he went to Israel, he became Eli, and when he came to this country, he became Eli. So just an interesting piece of trivia that I had no idea about until this was done.
So the technology is really expanding our opportunities to stay connected. So that's been one of the silver linings of the situation in which we find ourselves, is that, in fact, I was talking with, who was I talking with? Somebody who had experienced a loss in the last couple of days, and we were talking about the Shiva and the fact that because the Shiva will be via Zoom, that people who ordinarily wouldn't have been able to participate in the Shiva will be able to be together. So not as good, not the same as going to somebody's house and putting your arms around them and giving them a hug, but
Better than
It's
nothing.
going to be a long time till you give somebody a hug,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So let's move forward to page 46. And there are some guidelines that she offers into kind of how to take an ordinary trip and make it more of a pilgrimage. So we can dream together a little bit here about where we might want to travel and how we could enhance that experience. So the first question was to contemplate what you are longing for in your life at this moment, besides being able to give somebody a hug and go to the grocery store without a mask. Those are two things at the top of my list of what I'm longing for. Anticipate your journey by reading poems and stories about the place you will visit. It's interesting because that was one of the suggestions that we saw last week when we were looking at cultural events, that if you're going to go to an opera or a show, that reading some of the background about it can enhance the experience. Yes, Myra?
One of my daughters sort of had a pilgrimage for us by asking for a blintz recipe. So I looked up my blintz recipes and my mother's handwriting and blintzes, and that's a pilgrimage. Going back and giving recipes to your children and looking at them ourselves.
Yeah, we talked about how much food seemed to be a very common theme in the discussion. Yes, Sandy Copal.
I would like to go anywhere at this point. In fact, I told Erwin, I said, you know, I can't wait to feel safe so I can get on a plane and go anywhere. I don't care if it's just to Florida to visit my family in Florida or to come out to you, which would be special. I just want to go someplace. I'm just so tired of looking at the same.
Yeah.
So sometimes my pilgrimage is to go back and read the local newspaper online. So I typically look for stories that relate back to when I was growing up. A restaurant is either there. And I'm also getting into the habit of looking for folks who may have passed on that I remember. And it brings back the memories of growing up. Where did I know that individual? What was the job that that individual had? Maybe he was a restaurant owner or a shop owner. And instantaneously, I'm thinking about what it was like when I knew that individual and possibly had an interaction with him. So my journeys and pilgrimage sometimes is just looking at the local newspaper.
Yeah, that's such an interesting connection, Frank. I don't know if you're aware that my son-in-law, Tim, and Joe Miller were from the same teeny tiny town in Wisconsin called Port Washington. It's a town of like less than 10,000 people. And when they discovered the connection, Joe Miller commented that he knew people who had heard of it and been there, but Tim is the only other person that he ever met who actually was born and raised there. And Joe subscribed to the local newspaper in Port Washington, and he would save them and pass them on to Tim. And Tim, even as a young man, had the same experience you're describing. He loved reading about the high school sports teams, you know, the teams that he had played with and cheered for as a young man. So see your preparations for departure, such as packing, as rituals that marked your separation and setting off. So that's kind of an interesting reframing. Instead of looking at it as a chore that has to be done before you can get to the enjoyment stage of the journey, to look at that as part of the journey. And in fact, I'm going to put up a quote in the chat box that I really like. It's from Soren Kierkegaard. He said, "Pleasure disappoints, possibility never." And you know, I love that, because sometimes we can psych ourselves out that we're so looking forward to something, we develop such high expectations that then we're disappointed that the actual experience doesn't live up to our expectations. But a possibility, he says, never disappoints, because you know our mind, our imagination is wide open. So I like that idea, that making the packing into a ritual preparation part of the experience. And who was saying earlier something about Debbie Wakus, when you were talking about going to Flagstaff and how much enjoyment you have about the drive there. Just the journey is, again, part of the experience. Find ways to make the traveling itself wholly.
I think the plan.
What?
I think the planning itself is part of the experience of going away. The planning.
Yes.
The planning itself is part of the experience.
Yeah, no, we heard you.
Absolutely. And I have to say goodbye to everyone.
Oh, okay, bye.
Say goodbye, dear, for now.
Bye.
She said she's going to pick up muffins for Erwin. I don't know why there's an urgency that these muffins have to be picked up right now. They're having some kind of muffin emergency that
It's a pilgrimage.
Everyone's hungry.
Grocery pickup.
If they are very special muffins.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Run down to Wawa. They're open all the time. You know,
Well, I do my pickups curbside, so if I miss the time period, I think, oh, I better get over there.
Well, that could be it. Maybe they have a designated.
Why am I having trouble finding the chats on here, though?
I don't know. If you look on the bottom, you see where it says mute, stop video, security, participants, and then chat.
I have that on the top.
well, that's, yeah, because you're using
Mute.
an iPad, so it does not look the same as it does on a computer.
Oh, yeah, I used to be, I have to touch the chat to see it? Okay,
Does that help?
okay. But there hasn't been anything else posted in there today
Well,
by anybody.
I put down Russ and daughters. Oh yeah, my mom. Yeah.
Mom said she had a grocery pickup, so I know when we order food, we have to be there between a certain amount of times.
Yeah.
I have to leave. I've got a phone call.
Okay. You know what? I think we're. It sounds like we're winding down. I'm just gonna read the last couple of points. There were 7 of these points. We've read 4 of them. Starting next week, we're going to get into chapter 5. We're going to spend a lot of time in chapter 5. That's going to be more than 1 week because Reb Zalman Chapter Shalomi, who is my teacher, he's the person who officiated at David and my wedding. He has a huge number of exercises and activities for us. So I think we're going to be in that chapter for a number of weeks. But okay, real quickly. When you encounter challenges, face them honestly and reaffirm your purposes. When you arrive, celebrate the marvel of the moment by imagining how your experience will allow you to give back. One way to do that would be to recite Shehecheyanu, and then find a way to bring back aspects of your journey. And there's a suggestion, Marilyn, I was interested to hear what you had to say in particular about the next paragraph where it talks about if you're going to be taking photos on your trip, to think about a defining theme, such as windows, doors, clouds, cafe signs, bicycles, tile.
We take them all.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering.
Joel and I, we take them all.
Yeah, so he does not have one particular.
He has a digital camera. He'll take thousands of pictures in a day.
But he doesn't have one thing that he's looking for.
No, he likes people. He does portraits of people. I don't want to intrude upon people. I'm kind of skeptical about that. So I do some architecture and what I think is like vision designs in the sand or, buildings, that kind of thing.
Nice.
I like flowers.
There you go.
Yeah, flowers are a good one. Well, any final thoughts about pilgrimage travels, past and future?
I have
My only future pilgrimage travel, I think, is I can't wait to be able to get back to see my mom in Philly. And because she's been alone now for 3 months, I think, allowed to see nobody.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, as we're talking about pilgrimages, when I can finally get on a plane and get back there to see her and feel safe enough to do it, I'm thinking in terms of other things with visiting other places besides the cemetery and the usual places we go on my visit, other places of joy that I can, from my childhood, that I might take a ride with her and go visit.
Nice.
So that's
Good.
all.
Jane, did you have a comment? Oh, she's muted. Let's unmute Jane. There you go. Start again, Jane. We didn't hear you.
Okay, just a couple of things.
Please.
I met a guy in Costco a couple weeks ago who had a face shield, an acetate clear face shield.
Right.
And there had been a guy on MSNBC, a reporter, who got the COVID, and he said that he had traveled on a plane trip and he covered up his nose and his mouth, but not his eyes. And that's how he figured he got it. So I ordered this face shield, and to completely have a headband up top, and it covers your eyes down to your nose, and then you can wear your shield, your mask. So that's how I think I could travel.
Yeah, Lori and Ron Fischler, that's exactly what they had procured when they went to their summer home in Maine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't wear this on purpose, but I'm wearing my Copel Cruise T-shirt.
Aw.
So this is a family pilgrimage that we do
Nice.
every couple of years. Like 27 of us, on a cruise ship. It's a nice family vacation because there's something for everyone of every age. You can see each other when you want to see each other, and not see each other when you want a little break. So
Yeah.
that's been a fun way to stay connected with the family. Good. Well, we have socialize while distancing tomorrow at 3:30, and of course Kabbalat Shabbat, and Sunday morning Torah study. And
Do that.
if I don't see you before then, I'll see you a week from today.
Okay.
So Rabbi, do you think there could be some more Havdalah services possibly in the future?
I think there could be. Yeah, I think, why don't you drop the senior rabbi a note and make that request? Why are you laughing?
Yes, I'll do that. I thought from different sources it may have an influence.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair and reasonable request.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good week,
All
everybody.
right. And Frank, by the way, if you ever want, Frank Blake,
Yes.
if you ever want a lesson on how to make Havdalah, I can also, we can do a little lesson so that you can have Havdalah 7 nights a week if you want.
That-
Love to see that. Love to see that happen. Anybody would like to join me, please.
Yes.
All right, everybody,
All right, have a good-
take care.
have a
Nice
good one.
to see you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.